Erev Tov, everyone. Excuse me. The Chumash of Vayikra concludes with a series of blessings and a warning about disasters that could occur to the Jewish people. But the Ramban says, one of his strongest statements in defense of the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu is that if someone would stand up and tell you exactly what's going to happen 750 years from now, and it would be exactly as foretold, so that should make an impression upon you. So here we have, the Ramban says that the negative things in this parsha refer to the Churban Bayis Rishon, so the first exile of the Jewish people from the land of Israel. And since the Jewish people would return shortly, in history, 70 years is not a long time. In human life, it's everything, but since they would return in 70 years, so it's so to speak, a very limited parsha. And in the parsha itself, there are verses, there are psukim that are encouraging. Lo ma'astim, lo ga'altim, l'chalosam, lo febrisi itom, ki ani Hashem Elokeichem. God guarantees the survival of the Jewish people. So both the brachot and the negative things have to be seen in different layers of understanding. One layer is purely psychological. The Torah says, for instance, "V'yishavtem levetach b'artzachem." You'll dwell in security. Security is a psychological thing. A person can have tremendous fences and gates and protection, etc. That usually is a sign of insecurity. It doesn't feel secure. On the other hand, even when untoward incidents occur, rockets are shot upon us, nevertheless, sometimes people have a sense of security, personal security. So it's a psychological thing. The Torah describes prosperity. Botzir will bring Zorah. That's a psychological thing, that a person is satisfied, that he thinks that he has enough, that somehow everything is taken care of. So that's psychological, because there are people who have, for instance, equal means or equal wealth or equal circumstances. One of them feels secure and happy, and the other one is insecure and sad, depending on the nature of the person, and depending how the person looks at life. So when the Torah gives us a blessing that you'll feel secure, the Torah is talking psychologically. And that remains an important lesson in life, both individually and nationally, as to how a person treats the challenges and problems that always exist and that always rise against us. So you had security, you have wealth, the opposite that the Torah describes is the fact that there will be insecurity. And there'll be a feeling of impotence and of weakness, and they'll be driven out. They go into exile. Now, the Torah's definition of exile is, again, not only physical, but it is spiritual and mental and emotional. He doesn't feel at home. In fact, the Torah tells us that regarding the second Churban. So there were countries that we lived in for 800 years. Spain, Poland, Germany to a great extent. So if you live in a country for 800 years, it's likely that you will feel that somehow, this will continue forever. That's the nature of people. The Gemara points out that the Roman Empire, at the time of the Gemara, was already 500 years old. Well, if the Roman Empire is 500 years old, so it's going to be there forever. You cannot imagine in that time and in those generations a world without the Roman Empire. And yet we all know that the Roman Empire is also just a passing phenomenon that does not last. And it's that way with every country and every empire, that it's temporary. Now that's the feeling of Golus. The feeling of exile is that there is no permanence. We say that in davening in the B'olei Tzion, Shalom nigal lo rik, v'lo neilei la beholo. Person shouldn't work for nothing. What does it mean for nothing? It means for something that has no permanence to it whatsoever. That it doesn't have a lasting value. And we have so many instances in personal life and in national life where it's obvious that it was all that effort was wasted, was thrown out. And so that only intensifies the feeling of exile, the feeling of the fact that nothing is permanent. The Gemara says there was a king by the name of Munvaz. There was a queen by the name of Hilni Hamalko. There are streets named after them here in Yerushalayim. So they were not Jewish. But she had a home here in Yerushalayim, a palace she built right next to the Beit HaMikdash. And Chazal held her in great esteem as a righteous woman, as a righteous queen. And when she passed away, her son Munvaz became the king. So the Gemara in Baba Basra says that there was a year that there was a hunger year here in Eretz Yisrael, famine, and that the population didn't have food to eat. The king always had food to eat. So he opened his granaries and he distributed it to the population so that they should not starve. By so doing, he depleted his own personal fortune, the government's treasure house, etc. So the Gemara says his advisor said to him, "How did you do such a thing? Abosecha, your forefathers for hundreds of years stored up wealth and grain and so that the government would always have. And you squandered it. You gave it away." So he answered them, he said, "Avosai gonzu lamata ani gonasti lamala." My forefathers, they stored away lamata, here down on the earth. But I've stored away merit in heaven, which is permanent. Avosai gonzu b'makom shayad sholetes bo. V'ani gonazti b'makom she'ein hayad sholetes bo. My forefathers stored up, but it was always in danger. It could be taken away. I have stored up merit that no one can take away from me. And so both sides, they stored up in this world, I stored up in the permanent world. So that's an attitude. With that attitude, then the person is not in exile. The person does not feel that what he does has no permanence. And part of this psychological idea that the Parsha imparts to us is that how we should see ourselves. Should we see ourselves with the eyes of brocha or with the other eyes? But it's always the glass half full and half empty. It always depends upon us how we deal with life. And therefore, the Ramban points out that that was the test of the Jewish people. And he points out the fact that they came back and rebuilt after the first Churban shows that they held that the exile was not permanent. Because if the exile was permanent, what are they doing to go back? And we can certainly say that in our time as well. If the Jewish people would have felt that the diaspora is permanent, so then the entire episode here regarding the land of Israel could never have existed or begun. So these are ideas that exist in the Parsha. And that the Parsha is not limited to the literal words, which came true, every syllable came true, but also to the ideas and the lofty programs and noble values that the Torah wanted to impart to us. And that's why it is the concluding parshas of the Sefer Vayikra, which is Torah's Kohanim, and contains most of the mitzvahs of the Torah. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Yomer Otsa Kori Baruch Hu V'Zakos Yisrael V'Ficha Chirva Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar Adonai Chafetz Saman Sitko Yagol Torah V'Dadir.